Hi all, Adi here from Haunts and Jaunts. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I'm in deepest, darkest Sussex and I'm here at a church called St. Peter's in a little village called Woodmancote. Now, one of my favourite all-time horror writers has been laid to rest here, so I've come here to pay my respects, and that is James Herbert. I'm also going to try and have a look around the church, but I'm not sure if it's going to be open. Unfortunately, the church is actually locked, which is such a shame, but we'll have a quick look around the graveyard and then we'll find his grave and pay our respects. So some old ones there. That was 1739. This one's 1755. Still in quite good shape. That one's old, isn't it? Very old. That was perfect timing for the bells, wasn't it? And as we head over here, I found a memorial to two former parishioners, John Oswald and Thomas Harland. They were martyrs of the Reformation period, and they were both burned at the stake as heretics on the 6th of June 1556 at Lewes during the Marian persecutions. Now, for more information on the martyrs, please do look at Google. There's loads of stuff online, and I may do another video in the future, but it's too much to go into today. It's very likely that a church stood here in Saxon times, although no trace of such a building remains has been found under the foundations of the present church. And parts of it today date back to the 12th century. The oldest sections are Norman in origin. Now, although the church has been altered over time, its basic layout has stayed much the same for hundreds of years. Later additions came in gradually, bits of medieval period repairs after the Reformation, and here you can see some Victorian restoration work, which was very typical for rural churches in Sussex. Woodmancote was always a small farming community, and this church served a very practical role. It wasn't about grandeur, it was about routine, weekly services, seasonal festivals, baptisms, weddings and funerals. So for centuries, this was one of the main constants in people's lives around the local village. And there's a whole line of tombs there behind. This one, headstone 1740, and I couldn't read the rest. Sadly, we couldn't get into the church, but from what I've seen in photos, it's quite plain inside the church. Stone walls, nice ceilings, and rather simple, which is really nice. It feels and looks like it's solid, lived in, very much a parish church rather than a historical showpiece. But all that calm and everyday quality is what makes one particular grave stand out here. And obviously I'm talking about James Herbert. Now, if you don't know who James Herbert is, he became very well known in the 1970s for setting horror stories in very recognisable modern British environments. His breakout novel, The Rats, is set in contemporary London and focuses on how quickly everyday life can fall apart when something unexpected takes over. They were followed with books like The Fog, which is one of my all-time favourites, and The Dark, which is also a great read if you're a horror fan. And they continued that idea. They were set in familiar places, ordinary people just living their everyday lives, and then situations that would escalate beyond anyone's control. Herbert's style was very direct. He wasn't interested in subtle symbolism or slow-burning Gothic atmospheres. Instead, he wrote fast-paced stories that hit hard and kept going. And the approach helped redefine modern horror in Britain and showed that the genre didn't need to just be in American settings or classic, monsters for them to work. And when they're set in familiar environments, it's so much more relatable for the reader, which is why he was one of my favourite all-time horror writers. And I found this rather interesting ordnance survey mark on the side of the church, and these are used as like measuring points when they were making ordnance survey maps. You see, you just never know what you're going to find in these beautiful old churches and graveyards. Yeah, disappointed that it's closed, but most of the time we're lucky and we get in, so I'm just going to go now and try and find James Herbert's headstone and pay my respects. Now, I believe that James Herbert did live in the local village, so it's very fitting that he's buried in a place like this, a small ancient church that's quietly watched generations of families come and go, just living their ordinary lives. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I know it wasn't very long because we couldn't get into the church, but I do hope you enjoyed it, and it was very nice for me to be able to pay my respects to James Herbert. So if you did enjoy today's video, please do like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one.